Good morning, and I'm sorry my Korean is not so great, so I will do this in English. Really great to be here, excited to be in this great city of Seoul. And we want to really share some thoughts, ideas, and really exciting things that we've been doing with our customers over the last few years. And now more than ever, we are at an inflection point in the technology spectrum and how it can affect our businesses. And we are hearing a lot about the big data, we are hearing about how much volume that's being created, but it's really about the high-performance analytics. How can we create a platform that will really help our business take it to the next level? And the reason is because there is disruption happening with the way things are happening. The biggest disruption that happened in the foreseeable past was the internet. In fact, if you look at Seoul, the most connected city in the world, which is amazing, with 83% of broadband connectivity, you guys know it better than most anywhere in the world. The ability to do commerce and change business models using the internet has changed our life dramatically. And what is happening is we are at a similar crossroads because of three key critical factors that are happening. Cloud computing, that's really made it different for organizations in terms of where data is and how applications run. To the social networks. What was once just a site for sharing parties and photos and family pictures has become a very viable business mode. The Facebooks, LinkedIns, Twitters, etc. are a critical way, and all the local forms of social media networks are changing the way we're doing business and interacting with our customers. The third is the mobility. We have 7 billion people on planet Earth. We have almost 7 billion mobile devices today. By 2020, we will have 50 billion mobile devices. Imagine that. 50 billion. And these three things put together are really changing the way that data is created, information is shared, and that is why we have this whole big data trend. This has happened in an exponential, accelerated fashion over the last few years. So the question you have to ask yourself is, are you ready? Are you, as business leaders in your organizations, taking advantage of this trend, or are you waiting for things to happen? Because we haven't even got streams of data from the smart appliances, the sensor data, a magnitude of information that can come from the supply chain things that we are doing, especially for a country like South Korea. Here, you have to ask yourself as a leader, what are you going to do? And really, at inflection points, leaders emerge, and those who hesitate will be left behind. Let's take an example of two companies, Barnes & Nobles. This is a book retailer in the Americas, and in the mid-90s, they had revenues of about 2 billion US. There was a little company at that time, nobody knew, in Seattle that got started, called Amazon.com. And they shipped their first book in July of 95. Last year, the revenues of Amazon.com was 48 billion. The revenues for Barnes & Noble was about 7 billion. Their other competitor, Borders, filed for bankruptcy. The key here is, if you do not capitalize on the changes that are happening in a proactive way and take action for the change in consumer customer behavior, you will not go from good to great, but from good to bad. And that's not good for business. And this is really where we feel that the high-performance analytics capabilities is what is needed for taking business to the next level. So how do you harness this? Because there are a couple of impediments that were there in the past that have gone. The cost of infrastructure has dropped dramatically. You'll hear Dr. Goodnight talk about how we are leveraging that. The fact is, big data is not a hype or a nice to have, it is a must have. You must have a strategy, you must be implementing it, because it is no longer okay. Organizations are suffering with the cost of infrastructure to store data. So if you're not using it, how will you get the benefit? Also, this is not something that's a bleeding edge technology. Customers are already using this across all industries. And the fact is, in this hyper world that we live in, you cannot wait 6 to 12 months to figure out who else is doing this, and then I'll jump on, because that may be too late in how fast this train is moving. If you look at this, the cost of storage, memory computing has exponentially decayed over the last 10 years. All the even hardware vendors have dramatically reduced their pricing. Hardware is not an issue. It is really important that you have some key elements when you're designing a big data strategy. If you look at it, there are 4 key pillars as we see it. First is, how do you make sure you are acquiring the information irrespective of the velocity, the variety, and the volume. And big data is usually associated with volume, but it's more than that. There is the complexity of the information, whether it's semi-structured, structured, unstructured data that's coming. 2, storage of information and being able to access it, something that also complements your existing infrastructure and IT assets. So irrespective of what appliance, we have taken an agnostic view to make sure we are able to satisfy whatever technology preferences you have on the storage side. The third element is managing the information. It is absolutely critical you have an information strategy. How do you live with the legacy? How do you move to the new age and combine those things to give you the advantage? How do you have a governance process so business and IT are collaborating and making sure they understand how they're responding quickly to the market dynamics? And then you have to have the capabilities, whether it's data quality, whether it's master data management to get a single view of your customer or citizen or your supplier or your financials. These are all important fundamental infrastructural foundational elements. But what is really important to get the value of this tremendous amount of data is, how do you leverage it to get you insights? And this is where it's not about BI looking in the past. It's how do you predict the future with a higher degree of probability to make your business decisions more accurate. You need to be able to visualize the information. You're going to see some very exciting things that SAS has brought to the market. It's about predictive analytics and how we are taking this to a high performance level. And it's about integrating this insight into the business, because it's not something that's in the corner with some brilliant people, but it has to be pervasive through the organization for the end business user to make decisions in how they make their business better. If there's one slide I want you to remember, it's this. Irrespective of any industry, whether it's financial services, public sector, telecommunications, retail, manufacturing services, there is a business process, there is a use case that high performance analytics can really give you value and benefit on. For example, UOB, a bank in Singapore, they leveraged HPA for risk management, and they were able to get significant performance improvements in calculating value at risk elements. Very complex calculations, but with that, they were able to get almost 350+% improvement in calculating that. And that is so important, because every day that you see in the paper what's happening, you want to be ahead of the game, not behind and reacting. The US IRS is using this to be able to make sure there isn't any fraud, there isn't any leakage, that people are within compliance. Because given the state of economy, every dollar, every little piece of money that's coming into the government needs to be well validated. If you look at Telstra, it's a telco company, one of the largest companies in Australia and New Zealand. They're using this for campaign optimization. They're getting 15% better campaign response rates in a highly competitive market, and that's the edge that you need to get market share. If you look at Macy's, one of the largest retailers in the US, they're able to do markdown optimization so that as there are inventory changes and seasonal changes, they're able to maximize the profit, and they're able to change from taking calculations that take over 2+ days to less than 2 hours, so that the store manager, can make decisions to affect the sales immediately. Similarly with Catalina, there are so many examples of this, and this is what we hope to share with you, many more ideas, thoughts. And with that, let me introduce Jim Davis, CMO for SAS.